After a frustrating 27-18 loss to the Green Bay Packers, the question isn't what happened, but why, and the game film provides some very clear, but also some concerning answers. That and more right now on Locked On Commanders.
You are Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Commanders. I'm David Harrison, your guy on the ground covering the Washington Commanders for WUSA 9, here with you 5 days a week. You can also find me writing about the Commanders for Sports Illustrated's CommanderGameDay.com. You can follow me on X at DHarrison82. And I thank you for making Locked On Commanders your first listen or your first view today. And to the everydayers, a special thank you for coming through yet again for today's episode. If it's your first time here, welcome. Hopefully you like what you hear and you come back again real soon, even though we're not talking about the greatest of topics. Coming up on today's episode, we are going to look for the silver lining to the Washington Commanders win. Not a lot to choose from, but we are going to go through a lot of what did happen. The Commanders win. The Commanders lost to the Green Bay Packers. We are going to go through a lot of what did happen, why it happened, and what it means for the future. All of that coming up on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And it's brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every details because when we make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. So we're going to start this off with the two most immediate concerns coming out of Thursday's loss, which to me are very clear. They are the inconsistent play from the team's most important player and the very real impact of injuries to key veteran players. All of his rookie season, Jayden Daniels threw or completed less than 63% of his passes 5 times his entire rookie season. Twice now in the first 2 weeks of this season, he has had a completion percentage of 63% or less. So only twice did he have 63% or less completion percentage, I should say. Twice now he's had that completion percentage this season. I don't think the number is necessarily what we need to focus on as much as why the number is where it was, obviously specifically for week 2 against the Green Bay Packers. It was a very timid performance. I think that's just kind of one way to put it. 200 yards on 42 pass attempts. The film, when you go back and watch the game, which, you know, we're doing this about 48 hours from kickoff on Thursday night. So I've had plenty of time to watch the game, rewatch the game, watch the film, rewatch certain parts of the film. There were times where Jayden Daniels held the ball too long. I remember telling someone sitting next to me in the press box that I thought these first 2 weeks, it just seemed like Jayden was holding the ball a little bit too long. And I don't know if that's a matter of having more confidence in the offensive line and perhaps thinking, okay, I've got more time to stand in the pocket now, maybe having more confidence in the scheme and wanting to do that, but just not quite as quick to pull the trigger on the athleticism so far this year than we saw last year, which I thought was a really big part of his game. And I thought something that definitely should be continued into year 2 because it's going to be a very important part of why he and the Washington Commanders offense are successful. Holding the ball didn't contribute to all 4 sacks, right? But it did contribute a little bit to the pressure that he had to face, things like that. And you want to see that just get cleaned up a little bit more. Of course, you also have to take into account that just there weren't a lot of open receivers on a lot of these routes. But that's why I talk about not just getting rid of the ball. Don't just throw the ball for the sake of throwing the ball, but use that athleticism just a little bit more than I think he already has been here in the first 2 weeks. The scheme itself was very conservative when you go back and watch that game, and it allowed the Packers pass rush to successfully contain his scrambling ability when he's not getting out of the pocket as fast as he did a lot of times last year. But he's also using a very conservative scheme, which isn't necessarily on him, but more so on Cliff Kingsbury. Too many plays when I went back and watched this game, too many plays where they're only using half the field, where they're basically doing half the defense's job for him. You know what I mean? We've talked about this during the offseason. The air raid offense is less, it's known for its down the field, pressing, up-tempo type of operation. But really, when you get down to the roots of what the air raid is and where it was created, how it was created in an effort to use the entirety of the field. So that being said, and Cliff Kingsbury has said that his offense is not an air raid offense. And well, on Thursday night, we saw that because his offense on Thursday night did not use and did not maximize the entirety of the field, left, right, up, and down. Because, again, like I said, there were just several situations where the Washington Commanders only used half of the field. And it wasn't like they were lining up on half the field or running routes on half the field, running to the other side, then using the other half of the field. No, like there were a lot of route combinations that, for example, started off with all the weapons on the left side, and they all stayed on the left side. You know what I mean? There was not a lot of threatening all over the field, and I thought that was really telling and really conservative. Not a lot of double moves, not some crossing patterns and things like that, sure. But, in today's NFL, crossing patterns are no longer really just your standard. It's not what defenses expect is receivers to be crossing each other, right? To really challenge the defense mentally, to really challenge their eyes, to really challenge their discipline, you've got to do more than just simply cross people, right? So it was just a very vanilla scheme, I thought, and didn't get away from that vanilla scheme early enough in the game. The offense couldn't find a rhythm without Jayden Daniels being in a rhythm. 5 for 16, 31.3% third down conversion rate on Thursday night. You're never going to, 33% is like the floor, right? You need to convert 33% of your third downs minimum to be considered an efficient offense. The film and the stats and the film just kind of showed that in this game, Jayden Daniels wasn't elevating the offense himself, which you love your quarterback to be able to elevate the offense every game, right? But we're all human. We all have bad days in the office or not great days in the office even. Jayden, I don't think, was hurting the offense by any means, but he wasn't elevating the offense. The problem comes in where nobody else was elevating the offense either. There were no receivers out there say, I'm going to take matters in my own hand. And yeah, this might be my route, but man, I'm going to continue this thing and find open space. And man, I'm going to hype up my team. And man, I'm going to make this big block and free somebody. Man, I'm going to take this carry and just do something great with it. And I'm not saying it's just easy to do these great things, but that's what the great players do is they find a way to manufacture momentum, explosion, whatever it is that you need in the moments you need them. And it just on Thursday night, basically because it wasn't Jayden Daniels producing it, it just didn't get produced. It's a single man point of failure. And that really is troubling when you have any operation that has a single point of failure. Jayden after the game said, quote, "We just didn't make plays. It starts with me," end quote, which I agree. And I'm glad he takes responsibility. But if you're the coordinator and if you're the head coach, man, it can't be on one dude. It just can't be on one dude. So how do you fix it? The scheme has got to empower him and be more aggressive from the start. He's got to get the ball out quicker, but we've got to give him ways to get the ball out quicker. And the 2 successful touchdown drives in the fourth quarter, they did that. They allowed Jayden to be more aggressive. Jayden was being more aggressive. They were using some of the other schematics that we talked about before the game, things like that we'll get into here in just a little bit. Of course, the other topic that we got to talk to right off the bat of this episode is the injury bug, right? This team got hit hard with injuries. I know the Packers had a couple of guys get banged up. Jayden Reed, their talented wide receiver, has a broken collarbone, so that's certainly not fun. But Deatrich Wise Jr. carted off the field. Austin Ekeler, he suffered his injury late in the game, and he ended up having to be carted to the locker room. He was able to get off the field without the cart, but had to get carted to the locker room. Dan Quinn called Austin Ekeler's injury in the moment, quote unquote, significant. Wise was injured during an extra point, had a guy basically fall on the back of him. Ekeler injured a non-contact injury while a 12-yard gain was happening away from him. Neither player out for the season as confirmed by the team, but enough confirmation from other sources in other areas. We don't expect Deatrich Wise and Austin Ekeler to be back this season. It's going to test the team's depth. It's going to be, and it's going to do in critical positions, right? Deatrich Wise Jr. was brought in as a veteran leader. He was brought in to make the defensive line bigger, stronger, set the edge better. And he was doing all those things. And I know that, even he wasn't necessarily having the greatest of nights on Thursday night when the injury happened, but certainly better, and this isn't any shade to Javonte Jean-Baptiste, who came in and was really the primary replacement for Deatrich once he went out, ended up with 22 defensive snaps, but certainly better than anything else they've gotten, certainly better than what they had there last year. My anticipation right now is that Javon Kinlaw probably kicks outside, and you end up with a combination of Daron Payne and either Johnny Newton or Eddie Goldman, depending on the situation, inside. I think that's just kind of where I'm going right now. We'll see what the Commanders actually end up doing. DQ on Ekeler said, quote, "He does provide a lot of unique things for us," end quote, and that's putting it lightly. Chris Rodriguez Jr. has not been active for a game yet this season. You expect that he will be active. Bill Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt is expected to be the new primary back. Jeremy McNichols will kind of provide his veteran secondary role as he has been all along. And yeah, there's a possibility the Commanders also go out there and look to add to the running back room. They've got Donovan Edwards, rookie out of Michigan, on their practice squad. I don't know that they pull him up to the practice squad as a fourth running back, but Zach Moss is a free agent. Jamal Williams is a free agent. Also Gus Edwards, a free agent. So guys that they can certainly consider, expect to hear them working guys out. And we'll see what Adam Peters and Dan Quinn decide to do. The team also Like I said, could bring some guys. If they bring Donovan Edwards up, say, for example, they could also bring, Deatrich Felton back to the practice squad or something like that. So while the quarterback struggles and the amount of injuries tell us what the biggest problems are moving forward, the game film shows us exactly how this game was lost in a handful of specific back-breaking plays on Thursday Night Football. That and more coming up on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Commanders is brought to you by DoorDash. It's the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time on your order. These players delivered when it mattered most. So let's break it down. For the Commanders, defensive end Dorrance Armstrong delivered late in the game in a big way. Late in the fourth quarter with the game on the line. Still within reach, though technically not exactly close. Armstrong fought through blockers, got to Packers quarterback Jordan Love for a 13-yard sack, forced a punt, and gave his offense the ball back. What would have been an amazing comeback, but providing that opportunity when the pressure was there. Good to see him finishing a little bit on that play. Hope to see him consistently finishing as the season goes on. Just like Dorrance Armstrong delivered for the Commanders, DoorDash delivers for you on Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season. You can save up to $250, including $100 on DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply, and the promo period runs through November 18th. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers, you can bet just $5, and if that bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use anywhere on the app. I love using FanDuel because even after a tough game like the one on Thursday, it gets you excited for the next matchup. You can dive into all the different player props. Maybe you think Jayden Daniels is due for a bounce back and is going to go over his passing yards total. Maybe you can build a same game parlay. I love my same game parlays with a couple of favorite targets from the Washington roster. It's quick, it's easy, it's the best way to add a little bit more energy to Sundays, even when your favorite players, your favorite team isn't in action. So if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and get started to build your same game parlays. Don't forget your in-game props or your in-game bets as the contests go forward. I'm going to be watching Las Vegas Raiders, getting a little bit of advanced work on the team that the Commanders are playing next. Either way, go to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. You can point to one catastrophic defensive breakdown, one glaring offensive liability, and one overarching flawed strategy as the three core pillars for why the Washington Commanders were never truly competitive against the Green Bay Packers in week 2. We're going to start with the play, the defensive play. Green Bay, Jordan Love, 57-yard dagger fairly early in the game, but it was just one of those moments, man. Second possession of the game for the Packers. Jordan Love hits tight end Tucker Kraft, who ended up having a career day before we ever even got to halftime, let alone what he did for the rest of the game. Had like 500 yards receiving. Not actually, but if he's on your fantasy team and you started him, you're very happy with what he did. It set up their first touchdown, the 57-yard gain did. And the film shows that this was a breakdown on multiple levels. The Green Bay Packers cleverly sent two receivers deep. They forced single high safety Quan Martin to choose, right? There were two receivers on that play that had gotten on top of their defenders. Two Commanders defenders running in trail, needing a single high safety to help them. He's not two guys. You know what I mean? So Quan Martin picks one guy. Jordan Love, clean pocket, time to survey the field, simply threw the ball to the guy that Quan Martin didn't take. And that's just as simple as it ended up being for the Green Bay Packers, which is a problem when you're the Commanders defense because your job is to make things difficult. Jordan Love hits the tight end, runs downfield. Eventually, Quan Martin, Will Harris, they catch up to him. They bring him down, but not until he's gained 57 yards. That single play really completely changed the game's momentum. And honestly, it wasn't the only opportunity or the first opportunity even that Jordan Love had to hit a deep ball, but it was really the most impactful deep ball of the night. Really set the tone and just kind of immediately signaled to us that the Commanders' defensive scheme was not going to work on this night. The fix has to be schematic. So what do you do with that information? So that's what happened. That's why it happened. So what? Now that you know those two things, you have to go out there and fix it. You got to fix the scheme, man. The defense cannot ask one deep safety to cover two vertical routes when the pass rush is not affecting the quarterback, right? It's a little bit different. Jordan Love has pressure in his face, and even with only one guy single high, you don't give the quarterback time to scan the field. You don't give him time to figure out which guy Quan Martin is going to go after And if he puts the ball up while Quan still has time to make his decision, he just follows the ball, goes there, and hopefully makes the play. But when Jordan has time to stand there and wait for his 2 deep routes to diverge and force the safety to go one way or the other, this is what happens. You know what I mean? So you got to generate pressure some way, either with your 4-man rush, or if your 4-man rush isn't working, then you have to go out there and you got to give them some help. I think that early on, if you're going to try to go the 4-man rush, fine, but don't leave one guy deep then, because if your 4-man rush doesn't work, you're kind of screwing your dude back there. If you're going to have a 4-man rush early, leave 2 guys deep, or put your corners deep, put them on top instead of having him in trail position. Now, granted, it's certainly possible Joe Wade Jr. didn't want his 2 defenders in trail, but that's what they end up happening either way. It's kind of rudimentary to say it, and it's certainly easier said than done. I want to make sure that's very clear. It's easy for me to sit here and say, put 2 guys deep instead of 1 guy deep if you're going to bring a 4-man pressure, right? But at the same time, you don't want to tip your hand to your opponent and all that stuff. So there's caveats and all that stuff to it. But very early on in this game, in fact, before the game, I talked about it on our show. Peter Bukowski and I talked about it on the crossover. This is a vertical offense. Green Bay Packers are going to challenge you deep. So if you know they're going to challenge you deep, to me, you have no business leaving 1 safety deep and not generating pressure, not trying to generate pressure. You don't try to generate pressure by bringing 4 guys. You certainly hope to get pressure with just 4 guys. But if you're a coach and you're a defense coordinator and you're saying, I'm trying to generate pressure, you do that by bringing at least a 5th rusher, if not more. So to me, that's the schematic fix. The play caller just has to be better in those concepts. The play caller has to install better concepts. Just understand your opponent better. Now, that being said, right, I wanted to see the Commanders go after the Green Bay Packers and try to attack them. And it looks like Joe Wade Jr. kind of had that mentality. But we've talked to Dan Quinn in recent days about contingency plans, and it just didn't seem that there was a contingency plan in place for if the defensive approach early did not succeed. And that's why we just had an entire night of just watching this defense get gashed for big gain after big game. Next up, on the field game plan, a lost identity, right? The Commanders, while they were challenging on the defensive side, they were physically dominated on the offensive side. 404 yards gained by the Packers to 230 total by the Washington Commanders. They didn't get above 110 yards gained until like the 3rd quarter. Based on film review, again, the offense started out ultra conservative, did not attack the Packers, did not want to challenge the Packers. They were just trying to take what the Packers give them. And I know that the strategy of take what the defense gives you is there in every play, but that doesn't mean you just sit back and say, okay, where's my handout? No, you challenge them, make them decide what they're going to take away from you, and then you take what they can't take away from you, kind of like what the Packers did specifically on that 57-yard pass. You challenge Quan Martin. You say, okay, you're going single high. I'm going to run 2 deep guys at you. Quan, you now have to pick. Are you going left or are you going right? You went right. I'm going left. You went left. I'm going right, right? Challenge them, then take what they can't cover versus wait at the doorstep and wait for your free handout like it's Halloween, right? So that's just kind of the difference. 82 net yards in the first half, just not acceptable. Why it happened? Because again, a conservative approach, basically a self-defeating prophecy. We're not going to go out there and challenge. We're not going to go out there and try to impose our will on the opponent. We're going to just keep our things short. We're going to keep our things conservative. And it just seemed like that was the way it was going to be until that succeeded. And then we were going to try to challenge deep if you're the Washington Commanders offense. Physically beaten at the line of scrimmage. The Washington Commanders defense gave up 135 rushing yards. So even on the defensive side of the ball where they were trying to challenge in the backfield, in the secondary, saying, hey, look, we're going to cover your guys. We're going to leave as many guys in coverage. But everybody knows if the pass rush isn't getting home, there's nothing your secondary can do. The game just essentially showed a fundamental failure of both philosophy and execution. Head coach Dan Quinn didn't get into the specifics, but he agreed by saying, quote, I thought overall just a tough night in terms of style and attitude of how we want to play, identity. So we just missed the marks on those, end quote. And yeah, I think that much was obvious. The offensive line's weakness is the third thing we're going to talk about here, specifically rookie right tackle Josh Connerly Jr. And look, during training camp, during preseason, you say, this guy's developing, this guy's growing, he's going to have some missed blocks, he's going to do this, he's going to do that. It's the regular season. This all counts. And I'm not necessarily putting this on Josh Connerly Jr. I'm putting this on the coaching staff. You've got to put your best right tackle on the field. You've got to understand his strengths, you've got to understand his weaknesses, and you've got to address them. Not try to address them, address them. So you can sit there and say, well, we put guys in chip block positions. Okay, but it didn't work and it wasn't working. So figure something else out. That's your job. I mean, fair or not, that's your job. Whether it's Andrew Wiley coming in and being a better option, whether it's getting on your chip blockers and saying, hey, dude, like, wake up. Whether it's getting on your lineman and saying, hey, dude, wake up. Way too many inside pressures given up by Josh Connerly. Every offensive lineman knows, every offensive tackle knows you cannot get beat outside. If you're going to get beat in outside. Sorry, you can't get beat inside. If you're going to get beat outside. Don't get beat inside. Too many times. And honestly, it kind of looked like the plan because too many times we saw backfield blockers, running backs kick out, and Josh Connerly's getting beat inside. And now the running back is out of position to help the tackle. If the tackle's kicking out wide, expecting inside help, then your help needs to be inside. So again, I don't know where the miscommunication was, but I'm just going to tell you at the conflict point, which was right tackle Josh Connerly Jr., not enough help, not enough effective help. Looking at the review, I counted 2.5 sacks. Josh Connerly was accounted for. PFF credited him with giving up 3 sacks. PFF doesn't do half sacks, so I think we're on the same page. They're consistently beaten in one-on-ones. There was a critical 3rd and 3 in the third quarter. Green Bay territory after a big kickoff run, immediately just overpowered by Micah Parsons, resulting in a 10-yard sack that just killed all the momentum. You got to give him help. And you have to give him effective help. DQ said after the game, quote, you chip, you help when you can, end quote. Yeah, it's got to be effective, right? If you're out of gas and I bring you an empty gas can, it didn't really help you, did I? As ugly as that film was, it wasn't a complete disaster. And a few individual performances, one successful scheme feature offer a blueprint for how this team can improve heading into week 3. That's coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Commanders brought to you in part by Mazda, and this episode is brought to you by Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, they move culture, and they keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward didn't happen during a play, didn't happen during the game, happened after the final whistle. After a tough game defined by schematic breakdowns and individual struggles, quarterback Jayden Daniels stood at the podium and refused to let the team dwell on the loss. He said, look, it's only week 2. He couldn't expect anybody to hit. He doesn't expect anybody to hit the panic button. And the team has 10 days to reset, refocus, and get back to work. In a game where so much went wrong on the field, that moment of accountability and forward-looking leadership is what this team needs. And it's what the fan base needs. I know we're not doing it here today, but it's what we all need to do to move forward, no matter what the score. So when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. So I'll be honest with you, it's very tough to find silver linings, tough to find positives in a 9-point loss that was much, much worse if you watch that game. But there is some high effort play from key veterans and a repeated success of one offensive concept that proves there is still talent to build around on this roster and in this scheme. So one successful offensive scheme item and one individual that really stands out. The team's only clear schematic success came from attacking the short and intermediate part of the field, which received an A grade from post-game analysis. If you want to do that, I don't really give grades, but amid the team's poor performance, there were 3 guys: linebacker Bobby Wagner, defensive end Dorrance Armstrong, and wide receiver Deebo Samuel that I think delivered relatively strong games in a weak game overall. So the scheme exploitation, look, it's a known tendency in the Packers defense. We talked about it before the game. It was executed on touchdowns by Zach Ertz, executed on touchdown by Deebo Samuel. And I know the Deebo Samuel touchdown specifically was in garbage time, so there is a little bit of caveat to that, but the same schematic elements were there for both. Execute in the underside of the defense, execute in the intermediate part of the field. That's exactly what the Washington Commanders needed to do. They did try to do some of that early on. I think really where Cliff Kingsbury went wrong is that short passing game, intermediate passing game part of the scheme kind of looked like a benchmark. Like, we need to get here before we can go anywhere else. So if we don't get here, we can't go anywhere else, right? It's like you're bringing the cake to the birthday party. Well, if you don't have the cake, you can't go to the party. So in this case, the cake is short and intermediate passing game success and run game success. If we don't have that, then we can't unlock the double moves, the more complicated route tree combinations, the deep ball shots. But that's not how this works, right? This is not a birthday party. There's not a cake that has to be brought to the store or from the store. I think that Cliff Kingsbury, what he should have done, and again, this is me sitting in my office, not being an NFL coach, so grain of salt, but what I think should have happened is the intermediate passing game, the short passing game, that we're going to do a certain extent, but we look at it. They're all over it. They're all over. I mean, these guys ran like the whole purpose of a hitch, of a quick stop, whatever you want to call it, is that you threaten the defender upfield, you turn around, sudden change of direction, ball's coming, there's a catch. Jayden Daniels is great at delivering these balls on time. He did so a lot on Thursday night. The problem is when the receiver stopped and hitched, the defender did too. The defenders saw it. They were sitting on it. So double move them. You know what I mean? Do other things. I saw a film study from JT O'Sullivan on this game where he talked about hit a double move right off the line of scrimmage, reduced close to the line of scrimmage, close to the offensive line with an inside slot receiver. If you can follow me, release outside, go up the field about 3 to 5 yards, break out like you're running it out, get back up the field. Right there's your double move. And then boom, get to about the 8, 9, 10 yard line from the line of scrimmage up the field. Boom, hit a stop. Then you're going to get that corner out of phase. You're going to get them reacting, running. That's how you can do some of those things. We didn't see the Washington Commanders do any of those things. The Washington Commanders continued to hit. I mean, every third down, it felt like they were just running every receiver to the sticks, turn around, try to catch a ball. And the defense was right on top of it. The defense saw it coming. So when the defense sees it coming, you have to just skip that benchmark, man. You can't sit there and say, well, we can't move on to the deep stuff until the intermediate stuff starts working. No, dude, like that's not going to work, and it's not going to continue working. Now you're just banging your head against the wall, waiting for your head to stop hurting. Try something different. What else is in your game plan? What else has already been prepped that you can then move for, right? You burned the chicken, but we already had steak on, so let's just finish the steak. All right? I don't know how many analogies I can throw out there. That's my biggest frustration from the offensive performance is just it took way too long for Cliff Kingsbury to come off of what he was just intent on doing, and you hate that. Tight end Zach Ertz, Deebo Samuel, like I said, they kind of showcased it. But anyway, Bobby Wagner led the defense with 11 tackles. Great run fits throughout the game. Yes, he was part of that 57-yard pass. But to me, I don't know. And again, I'm not going to tell Quan how to do his job. I'm not going to tell the defense how to scheme it up. But, you know, if I got Zach, and again, and it's all in the moment, right? So it's one thing for me to say it watching film after the fact. In the moment, I don't know if you're Quan Martin seeing 2 Packers run down the field, one right at you, one to your left. If you can say, oh, that guy's running away from Bobby Wagner, this guy's running away from someone faster, let me go to Bobby Wagner's side. Like, it'd be great if you could do that, but that's a lot of stuff to process right in the moment if you're Quan Martin. So I don't want to be unfair here. But Bobby Wagner anchored the defense. A lot of good run fits, a lot of good play from him. Dorrance Armstrong, most impactful defensive lineman, I would say, in the entire game. Only the 1 sack, but, you know, was getting a good amount of penetration, kind of just like he has been since he got here. Deebo Samuel, 7 catches on 8 targets, very reliable, had the touchdown, and had a 50-yard kickoff return that, unfortunately, the offense, which he's a part of, did nothing with. So there's your silver lining. Not a lot of positivity to go for this game. I had an insider texting me telling me, fans are going to need someone to talk them off a ledge. Guys, listen, here's the only thing I can tell you to talk off the ledge. It's only week 2. Week 3 is coming. You know, Austin Ekeler is not the only talented running back out there. Deatrich isn't the only talented defensive end out there. This team has some time. They've got 10 days. We're already in the midst of it, but they had 10 days to get this fixed. And if I know anything about Dan Quinn, he is not sitting on his hands crying on the couch. He is at work, and he's got his coaches at work trying to figure this thing out. Week 3 is another opportunity, a new opportunity to get things back on track and get things going in the right direction. But I'm not going to sit here and do not a post-game show because we're obviously way too far outside the game for a post-game show. But so that's why I did the format that I did, what happened, why it happened, how we move forward. I'm not going to sit here and blow smoke up your butts. I'm not going to sit here and blow sunshine down your throat and try to tell you that it's all rainbows and, man, what a great effort and a loss. No, it was a terrible effort. If you saw my short after the game, it was an ugly effort. The team looked slow. Oldest team in the National Football League looked like it on Thursday. And perhaps that was a big part of it. Coming right out of training camp, week 2, quick turnaround. Maybe they were just slow, man. Maybe they were just slow because they're old and tired and they need these 10 days off. If they need these 10 days off, then we should see it against the Las Vegas Raiders because Las Vegas Raiders are playing Monday Night Football. That game is not going to end until Tuesday morning, East Coast time, right? That game starts at 10 p.m. Monday night, East Coast time. So they're not going to finish that game until into Tuesday morning. By the time the Las Vegas Raiders go to bed from their week 2 game, it's going to be Tuesday morning on the East Coast. The sun's going to be probably rising about the time they start to go to bed. The Washington Commanders have an advantage here against the Las Vegas Raiders. They need to take advantage of it. So anyway, we're going to get into all that, of course, coming up here in the next week. That's going to do it for today's episode. Hopefully the tone and tenor of the show will get much happier as we get away from this conversation. In the meantime, if you've got questions, if you've got comments, please text them to me directly by going and becoming a Locked On Commanders insider. Join subtext.com/LockedOnCommanders. The NFL season is finally here. Locked On NFL is covering the entire league door to door. Tyler, the Madman Rowland in the morning, Tony Wiggins in the afternoon at the barbershop. I am with Tony every Wednesday afternoon if you want to catch me on Locked On NFL. But either way, I highly recommend you catch all 10 episodes of Locked On NFL throughout the week to the everydayers. I see you every day. I appreciate you every day, and I thank you today. Keep smiling. It's one game. There are 15 left. We got way more football to watch and way more things to worry about. Until next time, stay safe, be kind to one another. We'll talk again real soon right here at Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.